mix at home. It's an olive oil, canola oil mix. There is what's called a flash point in oils, and that has everything to do with how hot they can get before they burn. Right? So this is a margarine. It's a pretty cheap. It's because I couldn't find the other oil. But usually I'll use a mix because I can get that pan pretty hot before it starts to want to burn anything I'm trying to do. Olive oil has a low flash point, which means it's going to get hot pretty quick. It's great. It's healthier. It tastes great. But if you really want to put, like making blackened chicken or blackened steak or any of that kind of stuff, you really want to use a vegetable oil like canola. Peanut oils and rice oils are the ones that have the higher flash points, and most people aren't going to do peanut oil for obvious reasons. Rice oil is really, really good, but it's really, really expensive. And the only place I've ever been able to find it is Amazon. Well, we're gonna. Got any questions? Paprika, salt, pepper, cumin, garlic, sugar.
Yes, I usually get that. Well, yeah.
I bring it everywhere I go, no matter whatever cooking class or. All right. So I don't know if y'all saw it a while ago, but it was just starting to smoke a little bit. You don't have to get to that point, but I know you put cold stuff in a hot pan, it's going to lower the temperature of the pan. So you really want to give it a head start if you're trying to get any kind of browning at all on it. And a good sign of your pan is hot enough if you get that little sizzle. So I got the chicken in there. I'm gonna flatten out to get as much surface of that chicken right against that heat with the oil. There you go. This is called, it's two things. Searing or sauteing. Searing is more, I use that word if I'm trying to get like a whole chicken breast or a whole steak or a pork chop and get that nice color on both sides. I'll call that searing, but it's also called sauteing. It's when you're trying to get color on the sides on your, it can mean even your vegetables, but it's when you're trying to get color. Once I know I've got a good heat on in your pan, and you've got some good browning going on your protein, you can go ahead and turn it down a little bit, where it'll just, the residual heat from your pan, whether it be cast iron or something like this, stainless steel, will continue far enough and let you brown the rest of your stuff. That way you don't burn your chicken or your steak or your McDonald's. This is just a snippet of a recipe, and it's just basically an Indian curry chicken. If you were to do it the whole way, there would be cilantro, onions, peppers, some extra. Oh, perfect. Pizza pan. That'll work. I'm just going to drain just a little excess oil. Oh yeah. You know how many times my wife threw away my baby grease? I know. It was hard. It hurt so bad. I don't want that thing sitting by my stove. It's like, you don't cook. I'm not gonna cook. So next thing I'm gonna do, so the chicken's not quite done. I could temp it and I'll tell you it's gonna read like 130. Some of them will be all the way done, but since we're gonna go to the next step, so we've done searing and sauteing, which both have to do with making your protein brown, getting some color and getting that, what's that effect called? Maillard effect, that's right. The next class we're going to do is about flavoring. And a lot of people like to, if they're making a soup or any kind of stew or anything, they'll let it cook and they'll taste it, and it just needs a little extra, and you'll go to the cabinet, you get some kind of powder or some extra seasoning, or maybe got some Tony Chachere's or whatever it is, and they'll put it in there, they'll let it cook for a couple minutes, and they'll taste it, and chances are it tastes a little better, right? But if you want to go to the next level, there's this thing called blooming, and it has to do with your spices. Spices are dry. They're dry, powdery. A lot of them have some kind of anti-caking element in there. I pretend that none of them do, just so I don't. This one doesn't. At least it doesn't say it does. Blooming, all it is you're taking a spice, a powder, usually a powder, and you're putting it to heat in some kind of oil, and that oil wakes the oils, and there is a little oil in this, believe it or not. If you were to press this, there would be some liquid in there. It wakes it up, and it toasts it. If you ever toasted some spices, then you know what I'm talking about. It's a lot. It tastes a lot different than just taking a piece of chicken that you just got done with and sprinkling some seasoning on there. It tastes a lot different. All this is, it's just curry. It's a regular old curry powder I got at Kroger. And they're, for the most part, very similar to each other.
Seems like a lot.
It is a lot. But if you want a flavor, if you want your taste bud to do the Robert Irvine happy dance, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you can't be afraid. Now, one thing you can over season, you can over salt, but you can't be afraid to get to that point. The best dishes in the world, the best chefs in the world are not afraid. The best cooks at home in the world are not afraid to get to that edge, right at the edge where you might offend somebody, but you didn't want to cook for them anyway. So, come closer. So, if I were to shake this around, you would not be able to smell this out of this can. But if I take the same curry powder and put it to some oil around this chicken and start putting some heat to it, you can smell it. You can smell it. Then that's called blooming. You're waking everything up. This will change a dish quicker than just about anything else that you can do. Besides catching one on fire. That'll change it in a heartbeat.
Now your curry, you put it on after you cooked it. I usually put it on before. What's the difference?
The what?
The curry?
I wanted to get my chicken brown.
Okay.
And you're not gonna be able to do that really with your spice on it. Yeah, it doesn't do it.
Okay.
Curries, we'll use a lot of either tomato paste or tomato puree. I used puree. And they will use either a coconut milk. A lot of times they use coconut milk. It does make it more exotic. It does taste better to me. But heavy cream is much easier to find. I can never remember where the coconut milk is. Ever. So we've sauteed, we've opened up those blooms, we've opened up the spices by blooming. gonna taste this when it's done.
Well, we were hoping so.
So, I will tell you, disclaimer, I will tell you this. When I'm doing this one is actually called chicken tikka masala. It's an Indian dish. False. It's actually originated out of Britain. From an Indian guy. Like he happened to live there. And anyway. So now we're gonna turn this up. So, the only time I've used salt is a little bit on the outside of the chicken before I even sauteed it. I haven't put any salt in here yet. And the reason why is because you can put more salt in, you can't take it out, right? And I want to make sure that I have the curry flavor right first before I add some more salt. Now, a lot of people will tell you that you can season with just powders and garlic and everything and leave salt out and it cuts out the sodium and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't open up your taste buds. There's a chemical thing that happens on our tongues when salt hits our tongue, and it opens up our taste buds to taste the other spices that we have.
Huh?
You
need salt.
You need salt.
Brain
Yeah.
needs it just to function. Grammar, no grammar today.
You have any plastic bags?
Yeah. Let's just add more salt.
Yeah, just a little more salt. If I were at home, I would add always have lemons and limes. I would add a little more.
Grab one or two.
You got one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Crazy. We got one.
This could technically be called boiling. Now watch this. Now it's called braising. All it is a covered container with food, with liquid in there. Usually, braising is most commonly known for dishes like pot roast or pork roast, where you have the carrots and the onions, and you got a little liquid in the bottom. You brown it on a couple of sides, and you cover it up and stick it in the oven. That's also braising. It's the more common. Now there's a point in braising that when you're cooking something and it's covered up, there's a point where that protein is going to break down so much that it just starts to shred. In a dish like this, I wouldn't let it get to that point. Because there's something really nice about getting a big chunk of chicken and having a little chew to it, right? Not for it being tough, but just having something to chew on. Those textures are the best dishes we've ever eaten. If you think about the different things you've ever eaten, are the ones that usually are the ones that have lots of textures. Rice, something crunchy, something sweet, something sour, something creamy. All those textures at one time. This will be usually served with rice, so you have the rice. There's nothing crunchy in this one. But I guess if you wanted to put some French fried onions in there on top, you could. That's good enough to eat.